Tremendous chus to come back once again for the second year in a row for the annual Shmiras Haloshon South Africa event. I'd like to thank all of those that participated in bringing me in, together with my wonderful family, for the second year in a row for this unbelievable Kiddush Hashem. I was asked not to mention any names. They know who they are, and I'm sure everybody here also knows who they are. But in particular, Rabbi Movsen Shlita, who worked tirelessly backwards and forwards to make sure that everything was organized and everything was comfortable, along with, of course, many others. So thank you, and Be'ezus Hashem, I hope today will be a tremendous Kiddush Hashem and a gewaldige chizuk in Kedusha Shabbos Kodesh. The South Africa community never ceases to amaze my family and myself for their friendship, for their love, for their acceptance. It's just an amazing community to be in, to be part of for the small amount of time that we're here this time, that we were here last time, and we remember it the whole year. The warmth of this community stays with us the whole year. The truth is, when they told me the subject of tonight's event, I was actually very excited. Shabbos Kodesh is one of my favorite subjects. It's a subject I speak about all the time for years and years and years. And I believe it to be one of the most important subjects that we can ever speak about. Because after all, when you want to describe someone, we don't call someone a shomer kashrus. You don't call someone he's a shomer tefillin or shomer tzitzis. You call someone he's a shomer Shabbos. They're shomer Shabbos. That's how we refer to people, because Shabbos encapsulates very much who they are and what they represent. So let's try. Be'ezah Hashem, b'siyata d'shmaya, the Rabbeinu Shalom should put the right words in my mouth, that we should be able to together get tremendous chizuk in Kedusha Shabbos, in the inyanim of Shabbos Kodesh. One of the commentators of the Gemara, called the Hagoyes Hashvi, and he writes many things on many Gemaras, explaining them in greater depth. And in one particular Gemara, it's a Gemara in Bava Metzia, where he talks about the following question. And the question went like this. There was a man who bought a barrel of tar. Now this barrel of tar was bought with the intention of covering his roof. He wanted to tar the top of his roof to prevent the rain from coming in. There was always leaks in the winter, couldn't take it anymore. So he bought a big barrel of tar, and his idea was, okay, I'll be able to, when the rain stops and everything dries out, I'm going to tar the roof. Month after month goes by, and he says, you know something, forget it. Nah, I'm not tarring the roof, it's over. I'm not interested, I don't need to, I'm moving, whatever the reason was. I'm going to sell the barrel of tar. So what happens is, he puts a for sale sign, people come over, sure, guy says I want to buy it. So he gives them the amount that he was selling it for. He starts, schlepping this barrel of tar. And as he does so, he was so excited about this barrel of tar that he seemed to have got for a good deal. He opens up the lid of this tar, the whole barrel, and he sees, oh wow, this is great tar, it's good condition, good quality. He starts messing around with his hand, and he says, hold on a second, something's not right. And he digs a little bit deeper, and he sees, lo and behold, that it's only a small layer of tar in the top, and underneath is pure gold. Gold chips, literally pure gold chips. He's like, what's going on over here? This is crazy. Maybe I've made a mistake, maybe I'm dreaming. He digs down deeper and deeper and deeper, and he sees more chips and more chips, pure gold. He says, I bought a barrel of tar. Now, he was in the place where he bought it from. The buyer, the seller was there, the buyer was there. So the guy who sold it looks at it and says, no, hold on a minute. There's a mistake here. That belongs to me. He said, what do you mean? I bought it from you. I paid you, rightfully so. It now belongs to me. Well, I didn't know it was gold. If I knew it was gold, I wouldn't have sold it. It's a mekartois, it's a sale that doesn't exist. No. Mistaken, absolutely not. And they're arguing backwards and forwards and arguing backwards and forwards. What's going to be? So they go to the Rav. The Rav at the time, again, this was brought down in the back of the Gemara in Bava Metzia. They came to Rav Eliezer Metz, who was one of the biggest dayanim at the time, one of the biggest goinim tzaddikim. And they came to him with the shayla. What do we do? Who does it belong to? Does it belong to the seller who originally had it and sold it? Or does it belong to the buyer who claims he bought it correctly, even though the seller says, well, if I would have known what was in there, I never would have sold it, so it wasn't a good sale. And the Rav paskined very clearly in favor of the buyer. And he said a very important yesod, which he paskined halacha l'maisa like, which the Svarim HaGedoshim use for something very important. And he said that at the end of the day, if you don't know the value of what you have, then you don't own that thing. And therefore, since you didn't know the real value of what was inside that barrel, it was real gold worth 100 times more than what the tar was, then you don't really own it. And therefore, yes, the buyer indeed bought it from you with the correct halachas of buying and selling, and it belongs to him. Rabbi say, Shabbos Kodesh has such tremendous power, immense power, the kedusha, the holiness that lies deep within the day of Shabbos Kodesh is so great that you simply cannot own it if you don't understand it or appreciate it. So let's spend Be'ezus Hashem the next few minutes trying to understand. Let's delve deep into the idea, into the sugya, into the topic of Shabbos Kodesh. There's a Gemara, the Gemara in Shabbos, Tav Yudam and Beis, where the Gemara says, Omar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu leMoshe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Matona toiva yesh li bebeis genozai. I have an amazing, a good present in my treasure house. Rabbeinu Shalom, telling this to Moshe Rabbeinu. I've got a great present. Continues the Gemara. V'Shabbos Shema. Its name is Shabbos Kodesh. And then he continues. V'ani mevakesh litna Yisrael. I'm giving this present to Klal Yisrael. They are receiving this present from me. It's a present from Hashem called Shabbos Kodesh. And it came straight Beis Genozai, from the storehouses, the treasure houses of the Melech Malchei Amlochim, of the King of all kings. Unbelievable. But the Gemara continues. 2 words. Leich v'hoidiyom. Go and tell them. They need to know. The Gemara says and goes through details of what that means when you give a present to someone. If you want them to appreciate it, tell them what it is. If you don't tell them and explain to them what it is, they're not going to appreciate the present that they received. Therefore, the Rabbeinu Shalom held so highly this beautiful present called Shabbos Kodesh. He didn't just give it to us, say, here you go guys, Shabbos Kodesh, enjoy. No. This was a present that was given with the intention of enjoying it, of getting involved in whatever Shabbos Kodesh means. Now we know, if you look at the words, leich v'hoidiyom, comes from das, dea, know, knowledge. That's what it means, literally. Go and tell them, go let them know, so they should know. Leich v'hoidiyom. Svarim HaGedoshim tell us something much, much deeper than that. That we know, das doesn't just mean knowledge. On a deeper level, das is connection. Das is love. That's what it really is. We know this from right in the beginning of Sefer Bereshis, Parshas Bereshis. V'odom yoda es chava. Odom knew, that's the literal translation in the Art Scroll. He knew chava. But of course we know it means much deeper than that. It was connection. It was love. Therefore, when the Rabbeinu Shalom said, Leich v'hoidiyom, go and tell them, it wasn't just tell them that it exists. They should know there's a Shabbos Kodesh. Once in 7 days, switch off your phone, close the office, chill, relax, Shabbos. No. Much deeper than that. What it really is the Rabbeinu Shalom telling Moshe Rabbeinu to tell every single one of us that Shabbos Kodesh is a day of connection. Shabbos Kodesh is a day of love between the Rabbeinu Shalom and Klal Yisrael ourselves. And therefore, if we step up and realize what it is, then every single Shabbos, we didn't just keep Shabbos. We elevated ourselves to the storehouses, to the treasure The treasure houses, that beautiful sign on the poster, on the flyer, with the treasure chest. Well, that was gorgeous. That was really special. When I saw that night, that's great. That's what it is, but much, much greater, more than we can understand. We elevate ourselves on a Shabbos Kodesh to enter the Beis Knesset, the Rabbeinu Shalom. We connect to him on the greatest level. The king, Lahavdol Elef Avdolis, doesn't let anybody in the storehouses, in the treasure houses. Absolutely not. You've got to be connected. You have to have some in. As they say in Israel, you need protectia to get in. We all have that protectia. Every one of us can just elevate ourselves and get in. We just have to understand the koyach, the power, the strength, the beauty of what Shabbos Kodesh is. So what's so special about Shabbos Kodesh? Pasuk says, "Vayivorech Elokim es Yom HaShvi." We say it every single Shabbos Kodesh by Kiddush. The words are familiar. Vayivorech Elokim es Yom HaShvi. Hashem blessed the seventh day. We hear it all the time, those words in Kiddush. Do we understand them? Do we know what they really mean? So it's interesting when we discuss the 39 melachos. We know there are 39 prohibited activities on Shabbos Kodesh, known as the Lamed Tes, the 39 melachos. The Mishnah in Masechta Shabbos describes the number in a very unusual way. It doesn't say there are 39 Lamed Tes melachos, which is what we would have written if we wrote the Mishnah. That's what we would have said. There are 39 melachos because there are 39 melachos. But the Mishnah doesn't say that. The Mishnah uses a very interesting way of describing it. Arboim chosa achas. 40 minus 1. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we know maths. So we know 40 minus 1 is 39. Great, 39 melachos. But why? Why did it explain it in a way that's so cryptic? Just say 39 melachos. What's the 40 minus 1? So I'll tell you an amazing explanation. Very, very interesting. A little bit deep, but it's a good explanation. Hopefully we can understand it better when we learn the Shloach Kodesh. The Shloach Kodesh brings another time that the Torah also uses the same terminology, and that is in Masechtas Makkos, when talking about the 39 lashes that a person receives for doing something wrong. He gets what we call malchus. He gets lashes. How many? 39. But once again, the way Chazal describe it is not 39 malchus, but it's arboim, 40 minus 1, chosa achas, missing 1. What's the connection then? There's got to be a connection between Shabbos Kodesh, that uses that terminology, and malchus, the whips, the lashes that a person gets for doing the wrong thing, which is also used the same language. 40 minus 1. Arborim chosa achas. What's the connection? So the Shloach Kodesh continues and he brings a Pirkei de Rabbi Elazar, a Pirkei Dalet, that he tells us a very beautiful idea. And hopefully with this idea we can understand deeper about Shabbos and what lies within Shabbos. How can we tap in to the Kedusha of Shabbos? And he explains that when Adam and Chava first did the very first sin in the history of the world, they actually were cursed in a Kabbalistic manner with 39 curses. So every person, says the Shloach Kodesh, that does anything wrong, that does any sin, any time during the year at any situation, he also brings upon himself some idea of 39 lashes, which represents the 39 curses, which was a result of the very first Aveira done by Adam and Chava. Now one of the curses which Adam received, which we are still living with until this day, is Bezeas apecha toicha lechem. With the sweat of your brow shall you get your bread. Meaning, you got to go to work. It's one of those curses. What can we do? That means if Adam and Rishon never did that first curse, never did that first sin, he never would have received that curse, and he might have been happy. I'm not sure if wife would have been, but he'd be home all day chilling. This is great. I don't have to do anything. You want to have bread? Just go to the tree and pick it off. You don't have to work. You don't have to do anything. This is amazing. But yet we know that's not what happened. Adam Rishon did the first sin, and because of that he was cursed with having to spend the rest of his life looking for work, looking for a parnasa. The Maharil takes it a step further, and he finds a connection between 40 minus 1 lashes and the 40 days it takes for the fetus to complete its initial stage of a tzura, the spiritual form that it takes inside the womb. And he writes, says the Maharal, that the first 39 days of the baby's creation in the world are days of what he calls choyma. That means physicality. The baby takes on its physical form during those 39 days, and it's that physical form that would eventually cause the human being to sometimes fall, do sin, do things that they shouldn't. And it's that 39 days, that complete time that it received its physical form, that needs to require to get the lashes, which is why it's 39 lashes. The Gemara in Masechta Tainis tells us that the Rabbeinu Shalom reassures Klal Yisrael, don't worry, Klal Yisrael, I have your back. I'll always be there for you. Whatever will happen, whatever you'll experience, whatever goes on in the worldly events that we look around and they're crazy. It doesn't make any sense. What's going on in the world? The Rebbeinu Shalom says, don't worry. Lashon of the Gemara. Ehyeh ketal Yisrael. I will be like tal. Tal is dew. You know when you wake up in the morning and you've got the dew on the floor? So not only does it give us our nourishment in this world, Chazal tell us, it is what it's going to cause Tchias HaMeisim. It's how those that left this world are going to return to this world with this tal, with the dew. So the tal is something that gives us life, not only here in this physical world, but also in the next world, when we need to bring people back. Now tal is a very important thing. Tal is tes lamed, but if you switch it, it's lamed tes. It's 39, representing the 39 malachos of Shabbos. That means on Shabbos we can reach the level of Adam Harishon before the very first Aveira, before it became physical. And therefore we hold within us the key of life and death. Shabbos Kodesh. And that's why, going back to what we asked before, where the Mishnah in Shabbos interestingly describes the idea of arboim chosa achas. It's not 39 malachas, it's arboim 40 chosa achas, missing one. Why that terminology? The answer is chosa achas, missing one. Achas is Hashem. You're missing the one. You're missing Hashem in your life. The arboim chosa achas means that when a person transgresses and he does that which he's not meant to be doing on Shabbos Kodesh, he's chosa achas. He's missing the achas, the one. He's missing Hashem in his life. He's missing that connection. He's missing what he really can connect to. In 1941, the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, slaughtered, as we know, many, but in particular that year, the men in the city of Telz. Telz was a city that was flourishing with Torah and Yerushalayim and Chesed, amazing place. Towards the end of that year, 1941, most of the men and even the women and children were unfortunately murdered or sent to concentration camps, and they set the city on fire. But there were those that survived. There were those that ran away. They escaped before it was too late, and they managed to flee for their lives. And amongst them was a young girl, a 16-year-old girl. You can imagine what it means to leave your family. Who knows what's going to be with them? Who knows what happened to them? Leave all your possessions, your home, and just run. Where you going? I don't know. Just run. 16-year-old girl. And she tried to find a place that maybe would host her, would hold her, would hide her, anything just to save her life. However, it wasn't simple, because the Germans had forbade anyone from hiding Jews. And they said clearly, anybody that we find holding a Jew, not only will the Jew die that you're holding, but the person holding that Jew will also die. So she managed here and there, there'd be a kind goy that would let her in, stay for a few hours. Sometimes she even got a night or two. But then they said, I'm really sorry, we're not risking our lives, you got to leave. Now of course she never said she was Jewish, but they realized, they saw, they understood. Until she managed to find one particular family This family were very kind, a non-Jewish family. They said, no problem. We have a bookshelf, and we move the bookshelf. There's a very small fireplace which no longer has any wood there. If you crouch there in a certain position the entire day, you could do that. You could stay there. At night, we'll let you out. Because that night, nobody really came around. They weren't so worried. But we have a deal. The deal is, do you know how to sew? And she says, actually, I do know how to sew. Great. So every night, we're going to put a pile of things next to where you're hiding out, and you're going to start sewing for us. You're going to do all our repairs, all our stitching, sewing, tailoring, whatever it is that needed to be done. And in those days, there didn't have any clothing, so there was constantly a flow of clothing that needed to be patched up and whatever. So every single day, that's what she had to do, and she was happy. They gave her food every so often. She was able to eat, she was able to survive, she was able to live. Now, they of course wanted her to work on Shabbos as well, because why not? So what she would do is, she would stay up the entire night on Thursday night, and sew double, to make sure that she'd do her quota, and therefore they would never know, and they never knew anything about it. One day, middle of the day, there's a knock on the the bookshelf, whatever it was, and they move it across. They say, listen, I need to go to the marketplace. My sleeve is a bit torn. I can't go out like this. Could you please sew it for me? Now, again, highly unusual that this would happen during the day, because they were always worried about Germans coming in to check, but it was desperate. She had nothing else to wear. Please, could you do it? So normally she'd say, sure, no problem, I'll do it for you right now. There was just one problem. It was Shabbos Kodesh. And she was not willing to break Shabbos. So she tried to find an excuse. She thought, I'll do something else, so I'll do that. And no, can you do this now? Of course, they had no idea that she kept Shabbos. They knew she was Jewish, but why would she keep Shabbos? And she said, listen, I'm Jewish, as you know. I don't break Shabbos. And I actually do double on Thursday every single week, just to make sure that I don't, break my Shabbos. And the woman went crazy. She started screaming, if you don't do it now, you're getting out of this house right now. She thinks to herself, pekuach nefesh. Of course I could probably do it, right? I'm not doing it. Shabbos is Shabbos. And she says, I'm not doing it. She's screaming, get out the house. She takes her, whatever she had with her, and she runs. And she runs and runs, no idea where she's going to go. And she eventually finds these huge, which many of them used to hide in, big stalks, cornfields, whatever it was. She managed to sort of rustle herself in the middle of it, so hopefully nobody would recognize that there was a hole there, and they would see her. So she was able to do that. It was Shabbos Kodesh. She started singing Chadoidi, Bikraskala, Pnei Shabbos, Lekablik. She started singing Shabbos Kodesh songs, remembering what it was like to be with her family. And after a couple of hours, she hears her name. Someone shouting her name. Who knows me? Who knows my name? Who's here? She was worried at first, but then she recognized it was actually the name of her previous host, or hostess. This woman came, was looking for her. She was a bit worried. What's she going to do? What's going to happen? Where's she going to go? She found her. And the hostess, the woman, says to her, I don't know what it is, but your Shabbos saved my life. And she was like, whoa, what happened? Said, literally a few moments after you left my house, the Germans barged in. They knew that I was holding a Jew. And they came in, a whole group of them, and they said, we are going to find this Jew. We know you have a Jew. They ripped up the floorboards. They smashed the ceilings. They did everything. They knew you were here, but they didn't find you. And they're saying the whole time, if we find this Jew, not only is the Jew going to die, but you're also going to die. And they searched the entire house, top to bottom, and they found nothing. They were upset, they were angry, but then they left. And she said, I want to tell you, your Shabbos saved not only your life, but also saved my life. That's what Shabbos can do. That's the koyach of Shabbos. I want to share with you an amazing Orach Chaim HaKodesh. The Orach Chaim HaKodesh tells us that by the creation of the world, the Rabbeinu Shalom explains to us how he created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day he rested. 6 days the Rabbeinu Shalom created the whole world. Shamayim v'aretz. And he rested on the 7th day. Familiar words. Says the Orach Chaim HaKodesh, Rabbi said this is amazing. Says the Orach Chaim HaKodesh, it doesn't say read the words, ki ba sheishes. In 6 days Hashem created the world. That's what it should have said. In 6 days Hashem created the world and rested on the seventh. Rather it says, Ki Sheishas Yomim. For 6 days Hashem created the world. Says the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, the Rabbeinu Shalom created the world to last for 6 days. That's it. That's it. It was only meant to last for 6 days. And then came along Shabbos Kodesh. Says the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, don't think for 1 minute that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu rested on the seventh, therefore we have Shabbos. No! It's because there's a creation called Shabbos Kodesh that allowed the Rabbeinu Shalom to rest, Kaviyachol, because when Shabbos Kodesh came into the world got cemented in. It kept being here. It came into existence and stayed here. It was meant to last only for 6 days. Came along Shabbos Kodesh, and now it can last for a lot longer, allowing the Rabbeinu Shalom Kaviyachol to rest. And Rabbi says to the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, listen to this. The Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, this is the pshat in the Gemara. The Gemara says that when a Yid gets up on a Friday night and he says Kiddush, he's a shutav, he's a partner with Hashem in Ma'aseh Bereshis. He becomes a partner with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu in creating the world. What does that mean? How do you become a partner with Hashem in creating the world? It's already created. According to the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, what he's telling us is that when you keep Shabbos with all of its details, with all of the halachas, with everything that's meant to be kept in Shabbos Kodesh, it's not just Shabbos you kept up the world. You're allowing the world to continue for another 6 days. That's Shabbos Kodesh. That's the koyach. You become a partner in the Rabbeinu Shalom's Shabbos Kodesh, in the making of the world and the continuation of the world. People ask sometimes, why there's so many halachas? God, so many halachas, 39 halachas that are doraisa and the durabonons, the gzeiras, backwards, the svarim written on Hilchas Shabbos. Wow, so many halachas. What do you want me? So I heard there was a yid one time. He told me he became religious. So I said, that's beautiful. Why? What made you? What made you religious? What was it? What did you see? I was waiting for some earth-shattering, amazing story about what happened. He was at the Kaisel, someone knocked on his shoulder, and a whole story. He says, Hilchas Boira on Shabbos. Huh? Hilchas Boira on Shabbos made you religious? I don't know what that means. What does that mean, it made you religious? Like most people be like, Boira, oh gosh, Boira, is it mutter? I think it's mutter. It's probably okay, right? That's the normal thing that people say, right? It's probably okay. I think it's okay, right? I once heard it's okay. You could probably do this, you can do this, you can't do it. You need it miyad, you don't need miyad, with your hand, not with the whole thing. This made you religious. He said, I'll tell you why. He says, if you've got a God that cares so much about every detail, every single detail. He says, like a painter. A good painter, a good drawer, a good artist understands it's not just the picture, it's everything around the picture. It's the details of the picture. It's how it's drawn, with what it's drawn, what's the background, what's happening. There's so much going on. A good artist understands that the details make all the difference. And he says to me, if the Rabbeinu Shalom really cares about you, about his Torah, about his people, and he's putting on these details, it means he really cares. I want to be associated with such a God. And he became religious because of that. And people ask, why there's so many halachas? Shabbos Kodesh, you can't do this, you can't do this. There's no mitzvah on Shabbos. Every Yom Tov has its mitzvah, right? Rosh Hashanah, wow, Shofar. Sukkot, we've got sitting in the Sukkah, Dalet Minim. Chanukah, Purim, Durabbanan, Daraisis, every Yom Tov has got its mitzvah. Okay, Shavuos, cheesecake, we can figure it out, staying up all night, learning Torah, we can make it work. Shabbos, there's nothing, no mitzvah. What do we do on Shabbos special? Okay, we rest. Okay, it's gewaldig. It's great. But what's the mitzvah? Rav Shishya Pinkus once said, if you look at Hilchos Shabbos, everything you do on Shabbos, you're going to meet halacha. You're going to meet Hilchos Shabbos. What really is going on is you're going to meet Hashem. Every single thing you do on Shabbos Kodesh, opening the fridge, tying your shoelaces, picking out which pair of socks, peeling the carrots, everything you do, from food to non-food, everything on Shabbos, you're meeting the Rabbeinu Shalom. That's what Shabbos is. Shabbos means to rest. Rest doesn't mean just switch off your phone, have a day off work, chill, no emails, no work, everything's great. Of course it also means that. And enjoy, and Hashem wants you to enjoy. He wants you to have a beautiful Suda, He wants you to have amazing food, and Oinig Shabbos, and He wants you to have good clothing, and of course He wants you to shluf a bit in the afternoon. Avodah, it's all a chelik of Shabbos Kodesh, for sure. But ultimately, Shabbos means to rest from what you're busy with and spend time with the Rabbeinu Shalom. I told this to the boys of yeshiva, imagine, okay, now it's not so negaya because we have phones and everything, but like years ago, for those that remember, there were not these little machines that have, you can see every video of every single thing that's going on in the world, all over the world, right? It didn't exist, right? So what happened? Once a week, you got a phone call, if you were lucky. You put a card into the payphones in Israel. You could see on the card how many chips were left. I remember doing it, and I'm not even that old. Even earlier than that. People used to go to Israel for a whole year. You didn't see your parents. Imagine Yankele comes home. He comes home for spending a whole year in Israel, and he comes home and he spends his first Shabbos at home. And his parents are so excited. Wow, we're spending Shabbos with Yankele. This is great. It's so excited. We're going to hear all about his year, what he did, where he went, what he learned, the whole situation. Yankele comes to the table, Shabbos Kodesh, 600-page book. I need to finish this book by the end of Shabbos. I'm like, hello, you don't want to spend time with us? The Rebbeinu Shalom says the same thing. The Rebbeinu Shalom says the same thing. I want to spend time with you. That's what Shabbos is. That's why there are so many halachas. Because everything you do, you're going to meet the Rebbeinu Shalom. During World War II, the Nazis were fastly approaching Eretz Yisrael. And it was a real sakona. Eretz Yisrael had no idea. Could be they're going to come all the way to us. And if they reach Eretz Yisrael, they reach Israel, who knows what they're going to do to us, to the land. People were really, really nervous. There was a big tzaddik of Shloimke's villa. Heilige tzaddik of Shloimke's villa. We knew nothing about it. No one told him about the news. He was calm, everything was great. Friday night, he makes Kiddush, as normal, calm, ragua. And after Kiddush, middle of the meal, someone says, Rebbe, they're approaching. He's like, what are you talking about? He says, they fill him in with the news. He says, oi, why didn't you tell me before Kiddush? Huh? What would you have done before Kiddush? And he said, what we said before V'narachem HaKodesh. So, Shloimke's villa. When I make Kiddush, I become a shutaf, a partner in the Rebbeinu Shalom in creating the world. Now, a partner can have ashpah on the other partner. I have protection, I have in. If I have in, I can tell Rebbeinu Shalom, no, protect us. I remember, not so long ago, on the Friday night, when we first heard the sirens in Israel, when we all knew things were happening, things were going on, rumors, news, whatever. We didn't know the extent, of course. Comes Friday night, ballistic missiles sent from Iran. Wow, the noises. The kids were frightened. I'll tell you my reaction. I'm not sure my wife agreed so much with this, but this was my reaction. Let's make Kiddush. Let's get involved in the Shabbos Suda. Because Shabbos is the greatest Shmira. When we make Kiddush and when we sit down at our Shabbos table, we have a Shmira, we have a bubble around us that shoyma us, that protects us. But we have to feel it. We have to know it. And we have to treat it that way. In the Hasidic circles, I don't think this is done so much over here, but maybe it is. In the Hasidic circles, when a kala gets engaged, so she spends what they call a Shabbos Gehenim in the other side. Again, I don't know what they call it over here. I'm not saying it is a Shabbos Gehenim. I don't have a son-in-law yet, so I can't experience it. Don't know, but that's what they call it. Shabbos Gehenim, going to the other side. So here's this kala, Hasidic kala. She's going to her future in-laws, and she actually was quite excited about it. She wanted to get to know her future mother-in-law. She's going to spend a lot of time there, especially by the Hasidic circles. The husband goes away for Yom Tovim. She moves into the Shmiga. So, she really wanted to, develop that bond. So she was actually quite excited to get there. So she made sure to pick out, of course, the nicest dresses and smart and clean and everything for, she's on show. She's on show in front of the family, right? So she gets to the house and she knocks on the door. She's nervous. She, makes her hair one last time, knocks on the door, and then she hears on the other side of the door, panic. she's here, why is she here so early? What's going on? And she's running backwards and forwards. They're running, this dish is smashing, there's on screaming, closing doors. She doesn't know if she should walk away. Is it too embarrassing now? She should stay there. She doesn't know what to do. Anyway, she figures, like, I can't walk away now, it's a bit late. Her mother-in-law opens the door. Hi, Bruchi, we've been waiting for you. So happy that you came. Perfect timing. This is Gavaldik. And she puts on a nice smile, and they show her to her room. So she comes down. She figures Erev Shabbos, it's a little bit busy. It's not the right time really to spend time with her future mother-in-law. But when the men go to shul and her mother-in-law lit candles, perfect. She comes down, mother-in-law lit candles. So she's about to approach her. They'll sit on the couch, we'll schmooze a bit. Mother-in-law says, listen, it's been a long week. It's been a really long week. I need to have a bit of a lie down before the meal starts. We have a long meal, so, I'm going to do that. So she says, okay, fine, sure, of course, no problem. She goes to, her mother-in-law goes to lie down. She goes back to her room this color. Okay. She figures, okay, by the meal's going to be great. See, by the meal, they're talking about politics. They're talking about sports. They're talking about the latest current events. All these things nothing going on. Maybe after meal, when the husbands and the men go to the tish, she goes back to bed. Next morning, same situation, repeats itself. Comes about half an hour before Motzei Shabbos. They're already inching to her bedroom to take off her bedding. Half an hour before Shabbos goes out, they're already trying to sort of clean up the room. Straight after Havdalah, they say to her, thank you so much for coming. Do you need help with the suitcases to wheel out? And she's kindly and politely shown where the door is. And that was her first experience of Shabbos Kodesh. But you know something? How many of us do the same thing? Shabbos is coming, right? Late, early, it doesn't make a difference, by the way. It doesn't make zero difference if Shabbos comes in, I don't know what time over here, when it comes in at 8, 9 o'clock, or it comes in at 4, 5 o'clock, it's irrelevant. It's a rush. So early, quickly, we're so late, we're going to jump in the shower, we've got so much to do. And then when Shabbos comes in, right, I'm so tired, it's been a long week, right, got to go to sleep. And then when it's the Shabbos meal, we're talking about the current events, and we're talking about this, and the news, and everything else going in. When Shabbos is about to come out, right, I'm ready, almost my buttons are coming off, right, because it's almost Motzei Shabbos, and therefore, not Shabbos anymore. We do the same thing. Where's our appreciation of Shabbos Kodesh? When have we spent time with the Rabbeinu Shalom? When have we spent time with the Rabbeinu Shalom who wants to spend a day out of 7 days in a week with us? That's what's going on. If we want bracha from Shabbos Kodesh, and Shabbos is the makor of all bracha, how many tzaddikim were telling people, especially the Chavetz Chaim and so many others, when people would come with problems, they would say Shabbos Kodesh. Keep Shabbos. Whether it's start a bit early, maybe by Chatzos, make sure that the table is set. Whether it's making sure to light Shabbos candles on time or maybe a couple of minutes early. Whether it's spending a few minutes on Shabbos saying Tehillim. Whether it's whatever it is. Shabbos is the makor of all bracha, but you can't tap into the makor, the source, if you don't know what it is and you don't utilize the day. Shabbos Kodesh is the greatest day that we have. They asked the Chavetz Chaim by the mon. Everyone knows by the mon that fell for Klal Yisrael. It could taste like any taste in the world. Whatever you wanted it to taste like. Can you imagine? It was great. Some people like sushi, go for it. Some people like pizza, burgers, whatever it was. I wonder how it goes in the 9 days. If you think of a steak or a burger, does it work that way? Is it fleischig? I don't know, but it's a great question. So they asked the Chavetz Chaim the following. What happens if a guy ate the mon and he didn't think of anything? Which, by the way, is very, something we don't think, we just do. So he just ate it because he was hungry. He didn't think about what it was, what he wanted it to taste like. What did it taste like? Chavetz Chaim told him, it tasted like absolutely nothing. If you didn't think, then it didn't taste of anything. And the Chavetz Chaim said, by the way, it's the same with Shabbos Kodesh. If you don't think about it, if you don't contemplate it, if you don't realize what we have, the treasure that the Rabbeinu Shalom gave us, the base Genoza from his treasure house, from his most precious place, and he gave it to every single one of us. Why? Because he wanted to have a day, we should have a day off? No. That we should spend a day with him. That we should spend a day with ourselves, with him, with our families, of course. All together, it's beautiful. All of that is great. With families at the Sudas, eating, drinking, enjoying, extra sleep. It's all great, and we should do all of that. But we should just think, why are we doing this? What's the purpose? You know, when I have boys in yeshiva, which I'm zoicha baruch Hashem, the Haloshon gave me siyata d'shmaya. Not only siyata d'shmaya and tremendous bracha and koiches, but also a wife and children who also have the tremendous siyata d'shmaya and mesiras nefesh to allow me to do that. But some of these boys, sometimes I get a boy here and there, struggles with Shabbos Kodesh. It's not easy, and it's not easy, and we can never judge. We can never judge anyone. And people sometimes tell me, you throw him out yeshiva, chas v'shalom, it's not going to make him a Shem Shabbos. I try to work with them. And they want to work, they want to understand. And often the only thing that's missing is an understanding of what Shabbos is. I'm telling you, I can list it, which I'm not going to. But I can list you the names of boys that when they came into yeshiva, they struggled. Doesn't mean they were machal Shabbos, but they struggled with Shabbos. It wasn't geschmack. And I have to tell you, I'm sure many of you here know, Shabbos, unfortunately, for many of our youth, is not so geschmack. It's very, very long. It's boring. What am I meant to do? When is it over? And there's a simple reason. We don't understand the beauty of what Shabbos is. We don't tap into the kedusha, the opportunity that Shabbos brings with it. I'm telling you, every boy that I spent time understanding Shabbos, and sometimes I do it for 3 or 4 minutes a day, that's it. Within a small amount of time, and I've watched the results with my own eyes, these are the boys that love Shabbos the most. They love Shabbos, they crave Shabbos, they can't wait for Shabbos, they live Shabbos. It's amazing. I've seen it with my own eyes. It's time to spend with ourselves, it's time to spend with our families, it's time to spend time with the Rabbeinu Shalom. And that's really what the Pasuk says. When the Pasuk says, Ru'u ki Hashem nosan lachem as Shabbos, Ru'u, see that Hashem gave you Shabbos. What does that mean, see? How do you see it? What does Ru'u mean? So it means, say the Svarim HaKadoshim, very similar cases we see, Uri'isem oisoi, you will see tzitzis. Tzitzis, by the way, doesn't mean you see them on yourselves, women are potter, but it means you see them on someone else. You see somebody wearing tzitzis, and then, U'zachartem es kol ha-mitzvahs, you remember all the mitzvahs. Ru'u means to contemplate, to think, to understand, to go deeper. The tzitzis represent all of the mitzvahs. Now let's remember the mitzvahs. Shabbos Kodesh, Ru'u, see, ki Hashem nosan lochem es Shabbos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Shabbos. That's why, by the way, speech on Shabbos is so important. What we say, how we say things, is crucial on Shabbos Kodesh. Lahavdil elef avdolos. If a person walks in to the White House, to Buckingham Palace, to wherever it is, he's not going to speak the way he normally speaks on the street. You're in front of the president. You're in front of the king. You can't just do that. Somebody told me that a relative of theirs was invited actually as a guest at Buckingham Palace. So they asked him, how was the experience? Right, a Jewish frum couple, they were actually asked to stay in Buckingham Palace for a couple of nights. And they said the most amazing thing, out of many things, but one specific thing. They went to have a dinner with, was then the Queen of England, a number of years ago, and they didn't have a chance to unpack their suitcase. But they didn't realize the service goes that you don't just leave your, they come and unpack for you. So they found everything neatly put in the cupboards, everything was beautifully laid out, it was gewaldic. One thing they noticed, which was just like astounding, that, you know, the coins in England, and in most places in the world, have the face of whoever is as the ruler. Especially in England, you had for many years, they still have it now, the Queen of England. Amazing. They had taken every coin and they had turned it so the Queen's face was facing up. Chas v'shalom, the Queen's face should be down, facing on the floor. That's a bezoyin to the Malchus. They faced it up. It's like, wow, even that they think about. Because you know why? You're in Buckingham Palace. And in Buckingham Palace, that's what they do. When we're in the Rabbeinu Shalom's house, the Beis Kenazov, not just his house, we're in his most treasured place, where only the greatest people, those who are chosen, those he loves, are in, then of course we have to act differently. And the way we speak makes such a difference. The Sfas Emes says, if you look at the psukim of Shabbos Kodesh, in one pasuk it says Shabbos 3 times. Why? Because it teaches us machshava, thoughts, maisa, deeds, and dibur, speech. Shabbos is not only about keeping the lamates malachas. Okay, I didn't do boy with the Shabbos, I didn't do muktzah, I didn't do bishul, I'm good. No, that also, but not only. It's how we conduct ourselves, what we speak about, how we speak. Because we're in the Rabbeinu Shalom's treasure house on Shabbos Kodesh. and therefore our speech has to be totally different. But I have to tell you, it's not easy. Shabbos never was, and still isn't, for many, easy. But our Mesiras Nefesh, our self-sacrifice, goes such a long way. I still remember my grandmother, she should live and be well. She told me that her aunt hid in a cellar in Budapest for years. A Frum Yid. She lit Shabbos candles in the basement. My grandmother said to me, do you know what that is? If there was a little bit of light that was found in Budapest at the time of the war, they would have come in, they would have bombed the place. Any bit of light. But yet Shabbos candles she lit. And my grandmother told me, it paid off. That self-sacrifice that she had, it paid off. Because generation after generation were religious because of the self-sacrifice. When the children see our self-sacrifice, when they see our Mesiras Nefesh, Shabbos, no, it's not easy. Not that we should say it's not, but we know that it's not. Shabbos is something we look forward to. Shabbos is something that we do. When they see our self-sacrifice, when they see what we do for Shabbos Kodesh, we have no idea what we're implanting within them. It can last generations. Generations and generations. And I'll end with one story that eventually made it here to South Africa. Maybe it's a famous story, but I'm going to say it anyway because it really took place not over here but ended up over here. I'm not going to say names, but there was a woman in the ghetto and she stole some potatoes. Can you imagine? She had done the terrible crime of stealing potatoes. Why? Because her children were starving. And when your children are starving, you'll do anything. And that's what she did. She took potatoes. No, wasn't the right thing to do, Efsha. They caught her. The ghetto police found out. They dragged her away to prison. And they took her into custody until she was going to be taken in front of the judge in court for her terrible crime of taking potatoes for her starving, dying children. She gets up at the court and the judge reads all the charges, and we know the actions that they could do, the crimes, the punishment. The punishment for such a thing could be horrendous. What she could receive could be terrible, unless she could prove her innocence. Because if she could prove her innocence, or at least why she did it, and explain to the court what led her to that, she'll probably be let off. Or they'll give her something small. She got up in front of the court, the judge read all the claims, you did this, you did this, you did this. And everyone expected her to start crying, or maybe some emotion, to beg, to plead, to explain, to tug the cords of emotion from this judge. What does it mean to have children? Those children are starving, please. Silence. She didn't say a word. There were family members, there were friends who were there for her moral support in the court, and they were like, they wanted to say something, but of course they weren't allowed to. Say something! But they didn't want to. They couldn't. Something wasn't right. They kept on saying, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you plead innocent? Silence. So the judge says, okay, if that's the case, there's nothing for you to do. I'm sorry. You are guilty of your crime and you will be punished accordingly. Court adjourned. The hammer went down. End of court. And her family members, her friends ran over to her and said, what happened to you? Say something. Tell the judge you could have changed the sentence. You could have done something. Why didn't you? Listen to what she said. And she answered as follows. She said, I noticed in the corner of the room there was a stenographer. A stenographer is someone that writes down everything that's said in court. Every detail, every word, everything has to be written down, so it's in the records. She said that woman was a Jewish woman, and today was Shabbos. And therefore everything I would say would make her be Machal Shabbos in an unnecessary way. I didn't want to do that for her. And she decided I'll give up on myself rather than have someone else be Machal Shabbos. That's the Mesiras Nefesh of Klal Yisrael. when you look back and you see the generations of Klal Yisrael, how Moisa Nefesh they were for Shabbos Kodesh, when it wasn't easy, when it was hard. That's why we're still here today to tell the story. That's why we're able to keep Shabbos today, because of their sacrificing. But we, on our little level, Baruch Hashem, Chazdei Hashem, we're not challenged in these ways. We don't have to make these sacrifices. We don't have to make these decisions, Baruch Hashem. But each and every one of us, on our madrega, on our level, on our understanding, on our connection, we all have self-sacrifice. We all have Mesiras Nefesh that we perhaps could maybe notch up a little bit. Next level. What more could we do for Shabbos? How can we make Shabbos in our homes more exciting, more simchadik, more happy, more accepting, more loving, more caring? Ultimately, the connection to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Yes, Shabbos is the Makor of all bracha. Yes, Shabbos is the day that the Rabbeinu Shalom gave us as a beautiful matana. He wants us to have it. He wants us to enjoy Shabbos. He wants us to eat and drink and relax and chill, of course. But there's a purpose. There's the Kedusha, the sanctity of Shabbos. The power of Shabbos is so great that we can have all the brachas in our lives, all the protection, all the brachas in our lives just from Shabbos Kodesh. Chazal tell us that Shabbos is the Makor of all bracha. People run over the world to get brachas from tzaddikim, and they should, and they go to rebbes and they should, and they go to kvarim and they should. These are all beautiful things. They forget one thing in front of their nose: they have Shabbos Kodesh. If we just remember, ru'u, if we just see, if we just contemplate, if we just recognize what Shabbos is, it's not just refraining from malacha and I was yaitza, but it's connecting. It's spending time, Shabbos, to rest, to reconnect to what Shabbos is, to the connection that the Rabbeinu Shalom wants to have with every single one of us. The speech that we speak on Shabbos we should be careful. Shabbos Kodesh. Like sitting in the sukkah. We're in the sukkah. This is Shabbos Kodesh. We have an envelope of Kedusha around us. Just be careful our words the whole year, every day. But Shabbos Kodesh even more so. Let's try to utilize the time of Shabbos to connect not only with our family members and friends, which is great, but with ourselves and with the Rabbeinu Shalom. And when we do that, Be'ezus Hashem, the Rabbeinu Shalom will give every single one of us so many brachas that we all so desperately need in our lives, that Be'ezus Hashem, when we do this, the Rabbeinu Shalom says, this is my beloved Klal Yisrael, this is my Am HaNivcha, this is the nation that I chose, and this was the present that I gave them. They're utilizing it greatly. I'm going to continue to give them all the brachas. We should all be Zoicha, b'schus this incredible Kiddush Hashem. Thank you for coming here, thank you for listening, and we should all be Zoicha to tremendous bracha in all of our lives.